In the silence of a Harvard dorm room, a single idea flickered to life, a spark that would ignite a revolution. He was just a college kid, restless, misunderstood, and obsessed with connection. He didn't look like a titan. He didn't sound like a prophet, but inside a storm was brewing. He saw a world that didn't exist yet, a world where distance meant nothing, where every voice could be heard. He was mocked, he was doubted, he was told to quit. But Mark Zuckerberg didn't quit. He coded through the night, fueled by caffeine and a relentless vision. He watched as his creation spread like wildfire, first across campus, then across continents. He faced lawsuits, betrayals, and the glare of the world's spotlight. He made mistakes, big ones. He lost friends. He lost sleep. He lost himself sometimes, but he never lost the vision. This is not just the story of a company. It's the story of a revolution. It's the story of a boy who became a builder who became a billionaire, and a billionaire who dared to reimagine reality itself. This is the story of Mark Zuckerberg and the vision that built Meta. But before the world knew his name, before the headlines and the billions, there was just a boy with a mind on fire, a boy who would change everything. Mark Elliott Zuckerberg was born on May 14, 1984 in White Plains, New York. The world he entered was quiet, suburban, and safe. But inside the Zuckerberg home there was a different kind of energy, a restless curiosity, a hunger for knowledge, a sense that anything was possible. His father, Edward, was a dentist. His mother, Karen, a psychiatrist. They believed in hard work and education, in the power of questions. They filled their home with books, with computers, with conversation. Mark was the only boy among 4 sisters. He was the youngest, the smallest, the quietest, but he was also the most intense. He didn't play with toys the way other kids did. He took them apart. He wanted to know how things worked, how the pieces fit together, how the circuits hummed, how the world was built. He was a builder even then. At the dinner table, the Zuckerbergs talked about everything: science, art, philosophy, the news. Mark listened. He absorbed. He asked questions that made adults pause. He was different, and he knew it. School was easy for Mark, too easy. He finished his homework in minutes. He aced every test, but he was bored. He wanted more. So his father brought home a computer, an old Atari, clunky and slow. But to Mark, it was a universe. He learned to code before he learned to drive. He wrote his first computer program at age 12, a simple messaging system he called ZuckNet. It let his family communicate between rooms. It was primitive, but it worked. His father used it in his dental office. Patients would arrive, and the receptionist would send a message to the back. Mark's invention made things smoother, faster, better. He was proud, but he wanted more. He devoured books on programming, on artificial intelligence, on the future. He read about Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and the pioneers of Silicon Valley. He dreamed of building something big, something that mattered. But he was still just a kid living in Dobbs Ferry, New York. The world seemed far away. He was shy. He didn't fit in. He wasn't the star athlete or the class clown. He was the kid in the corner, lost in thought, scribbling code on scraps of paper. But inside, he was building worlds. His parents saw his potential. They sent him to Phillips Exeter Academy, a prestigious prep school in New Hampshire. It was a new world, competitive, intense, demanding. Mark thrived. He joined the fencing team. He edited the school newspaper. He made friends who challenged him, who pushed him, who saw the fire in his eyes. But even at Exeter, he was different. He spent his nights coding, building programs for fun. He created a music player called Synapse that learned your tastes and made recommendations. Microsoft and AOL tried to buy it. Mark said no. He didn't want to sell out. He wanted to build. He wanted to change the world, but he was still just a teenager standing on the edge of something vast and unknown. He applied to Harvard. He got in. It was the beginning of everything. But what Mark didn't know was that the path ahead would be anything but easy. He would face challenges that would test his mind, his morals, and his very soul. He would have to choose between friendship and ambition, between comfort and greatness. He would have to risk everything. But for now, he was just a freshman, moving into a cramped dorm room, carrying nothing but a suitcase, a laptop, and a dream. He didn't know it yet, but the world was about to change. But what happened next would push Mark to the edge and force him to make a choice that would define his destiny. Harvard was a world apart from Dobbs Ferry. The campus buzzed with energy, with ambition, with the weight of history. Mark felt it the moment he arrived. The air was electric. The students were brilliant, driven, hungry. He was just another face in the crowd, another freshman with big dreams. But Mark didn't want to blend in. He wanted to stand out. He dove into his classes, computer science, psychology, philosophy. He wanted to understand how people thought, how they connected, how they built meaning. He made friends Dustin Moskovitz, Chris Hughes, Eduardo Saverin. They were smart, quirky, loyal. They shared his love of ideas, his sense of possibility, but Mark was restless. He wanted to build something. He wanted to leave a mark. He spent his nights coding, his days dreaming. He built programs for fun, Course Match, which helped students pick classes, Face Mash, which let students rate each other's photos. Face Mash was a joke, a prank, but it went viral. It crashed the Harvard servers. It got Mark in trouble, but it also got him noticed. People started to talk. Who was this kid? What would he do next? Mark felt the pressure. He felt the excitement. He felt the fear. He was on the edge of something big. He could feel it. But he didn't know what it was. He just knew he had to keep building. He had to keep pushing. He had to keep dreaming. Because deep down, he believed that one idea, one spark, could change everything. And he was right. But the road ahead would be darker, harder, and more dangerous than he could ever imagine. Because the next step would bring Mark face to face with betrayal, ambition, and the price of greatness. The idea came late one night in the glow of a computer screen. What if there was a way for people to connect online? Not just as usernames or avatars, but as themselves, as real people with real faces, real stories, real lives. What if you could bring the world closer together? Mark couldn't shake the thought. He talked it over with his friends. They were skeptical but intrigued. He started coding. He built the first version in a matter of weeks. He called it the Facebook. It was simple: profiles, photos, friends, a digital yearbook but alive. He launched it in February 2004. Within days, hundreds of students signed up, then thousands. It spread from Harvard to Yale to Columbia to Stanford. It was viral, unstoppable, electric, but with success came problems. The Harvard administration was furious. They accused Mark of violating privacy, of breaking rules. Other students claimed he had stolen their idea. The Winklevoss twins, Cameron and Tyler, and their partner Divya Narendra said Mark had agreed to help them build a similar site, Harvard Connection. They accused him of betrayal. Lawsuits followed. Accusations flew, the pressure mounted. Mark was just 19, he was in over his head, he didn't sleep, he barely ate, he coded, he negotiated, he fought. He was losing friends, he was losing trust. But he couldn't stop. The vision was too strong. He dropped out of Harvard. He moved to Palo Alto, California with his team. They rented a house. They worked around the clock. They lived on pizza and Red Bull. They had no money. No investors, no guarantees, but they had a dream. They believed they could change the world, but the world wasn't ready to be changed. Investors laughed at them. Tech giants ignored them. The media dismissed them. They were just kids playing with code, but Mark knew better. He saw the future. He saw a world where everyone was connected. He saw a world where anyone could share their story. He saw a world where distance disappeared. But the world didn't see him, not yet. But just as Mark began to find his footing, a storm was brewing, one that would threaten to tear everything apart. Money was tight. The team was exhausted. The lawsuits dragged on. Mark was under siege from the outside and from within. Eduardo Saverin, his friend and co-founder, felt betrayed. He thought Mark was freezing him out, cutting him off, pushing him aside. The arguments grew heated. The trust began to crack. Mark felt alone. He felt misunderstood. He felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. He was building something bigger than himself, but he was losing himself in the process. He missed his family. He missed his old life. He missed the simplicity of coding for fun. Now every line of code was a battle. Every decision was a risk. He was fighting for survival, but he refused to give up. He refused to let go of the vision. He refused to let the world win. Because deep down, he believed that connection was worth fighting for. He believed that bringing people together was worth any price, even if it meant losing everything else. But the price would be higher than he ever imagined. Because what Mark faced next would test not just his business, but his very soul. The lawsuits intensified. The Winklevoss twins took Mark to court, accusing him of stealing their idea. The media pounced. The headlines were brutal. The Facebook thief, betrayal in Silicon Valley. Mark's reputation was on the line. His company was on the line. His future was on the line. He fought back. He hired lawyers. He gave depositions. He defended himself again and again. But the stress was crushing. He lost sleep. He lost weight. He lost friends. He questioned everything. Was it worth it? Was the vision worth the pain? He made mistakes. He trusted the wrong people. He pushed too hard, too fast. He alienated Eduardo. Their friendship shattered. The company nearly split in two. Mark felt the loss deeply. Eduardo had been his friend, his partner, his brother. Now they were enemies. The settlement was bitter. The wounds ran deep, but Mark kept going. He had to. The company was growing, but so were the problems. Hackers attacked the site, servers crashed, data was lost. Every day brought a new crisis. Mark was just 20 years old, running a company with millions of users. He was in over his head. He made more mistakes. He hired the wrong people. He trusted the wrong advisors. He missed opportunities. He lost deals. He was learning, but the lessons were hard. He was growing, but the pain was real. He was building an empire, but the foundation was shaky. He felt the pressure. He felt the fear, but he refused to quit. He refused to let failure define him. He refused to let the world win. Because deep down, he believed that every setback was a lesson. Every failure was a step forward. Every loss was a chance to begin again. But the losses kept coming. And then, just when Mark thought he had survived the worst, the darkness closed in. The company was burning cash. Investors were getting nervous. The team was burning out. People were leaving. Mark was burning out. He was losing himself. He questioned his own vision. Was he building something good, or was he just chasing power? He faced criticism from all sides. Privacy advocates attacked him. Politicians questioned him. The media mocked him. He was called arrogant, reckless, dangerous. He was accused of putting profit over people, growth over ethics. He felt the weight of every accusation. He felt the sting of every betrayal. He felt the loneliness of leadership. He was just a kid trying to build something beautiful, but the world saw a villain. He tried to explain. He tried to defend himself, but the world didn't listen. He was alone. He was afraid. He was lost, but he kept going. Because he believed that connection was worth fighting for. He believed that bringing people together was worth any price, even if it meant losing himself. But the price would be higher than he ever imagined. Because what Mark faced next would push him to the very edge and force him to confront the darkness within. The pressure was relentless. The lawsuits dragged on. The criticism intensified. The betrayals multiplied. Mark felt the walls closing in. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't eat. He couldn't escape. He was trapped in a prison of his own making. He questioned everything. Was it worth it? Was the vision worth the pain? He missed his family. He missed his friends. He missed the simplicity of coding for fun. Now every line of code was a battle. Every decision was a risk. He was fighting for survival, but he was losing himself. He felt the darkness creeping in. He felt the fear, the doubt, the loneliness. He felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. He was just a kid trying to build something beautiful, but the world saw a villain. He tried to explain. He tried to defend himself. But the world didn't listen. He was alone. He was afraid. He was lost. He hit rock bottom. He thought about quitting. He thought about walking away. He thought about giving up. But something inside him refused to let go. Something inside him refused to surrender. Something inside him believed that connection was worth fighting for. He reached out to his family. He reached out to his friends. He found support. He found strength. He found hope. He remembered why he started. He remembered the vision. He remembered the dream. He decided to fight. He decided to rise. He decided to build. But what happened next would change everything and set Mark on a path to greatness. The turning point came quietly in the middle of the night. Mark was alone, staring at his computer screen, lost in thought. He thought about everything he had lost, everything he had sacrificed, everything he had built. He thought about the vision. He thought about the dream. He realized that he had been building for the wrong reasons. He had been chasing growth, chasing power, chasing validation. But the real power was in connection. The real power was in bringing people together. He made a decision. He would put people first. He would build for connection, not for profit. He would build for meaning, not for power. He would build for the world, not for himself. He called his team together. He shared his vision. He inspired them. He led them. He rebuilt the company from the inside out. He focused on trust, on safety, on community. He listened to his users. He listened to his critics. He listened to his heart. He made hard decisions. He let go of people who didn't share the vision. He hired new leaders. He built a new culture. He rebuilt the foundation. He reignited the dream. He found his purpose. He found his strength. He found his voice. He was ready to rise. But the world wasn't ready for what Mark was about to unleash. The company began to grow, faster, stronger, better. Users flocked to the platform. Investors took notice. The media began to pay attention. Mark was no longer just a kid with a dream. He was a leader with a vision. He made bold moves. He expanded the platform. He added new features, news feed, groups, pages. He opened the platform to developers. He created an ecosystem. He built a company, not just a product. He hired the best and brightest. He built a team that shared his vision. He inspired them. He challenged them. He led them. He worked around the clock. He sacrificed sleep, comfort, and normalcy. He poured everything he had into the company. He faced new challenges, competition from MySpace, from Google, from Twitter. But he refused to back down. He refused to give up. He refused to let the world win. He believed in the vision. He believed in the dream. He believed in the power of connection. The company grew, millions of users, then tens of millions, then hundreds of millions. The world was changing. People were connecting in ways they never had before. Stories were being shared. Movements were being born. Lives were being changed. Mark watched in awe. He felt the power of what he had built. He felt the responsibility. He felt the weight. But he was ready. He was a leader now. He was a builder. He was a visionary. He was changing the world, but the world was changing him too. He learned to listen. He learned to adapt. He learned to lead. He made mistakes. He learned from them. He faced criticism. He grew from it. He faced failure. He rose from it. He was relentless. He was unstoppable. He was building an empire, but the empire would come at a cost. And as Mark's vision grew, so did the challenges. Challenges that would test everything he believed in. He took the company public. The IPO was a milestone, a moment of triumph, a moment of risk. The world watched as Facebook became one of the most valuable companies in history. Mark became a billionaire overnight. But the money didn't matter, the vision mattered, the mission mattered. He reinvested in the company. He reinvested in the dream. He bought Instagram. He bought WhatsApp. He expanded the empire. He built new products, new platforms, new possibilities. He pushed the boundaries of technology. He explored virtual reality, artificial intelligence, the future of connection. He dreamed bigger. He worked harder. He sacrificed more. He faced new challenges, privacy scandals, political controversies, global crises. He faced criticism from all sides, but he refused to back down. He refused to give up. He refused to let the world win. He believed in the vision. He believed in the dream. He believed in the power of connection. He was building something bigger than himself. He was building the future. But the future was uncertain. The risks were real. The stakes were higher than ever. But Mark was ready. He was a leader now. He was a builder. He was a visionary. He was changing the world, and the world was watching. But just as Mark reached the pinnacle of success, a new challenge emerged, one that would force him to reinvent everything. The world was changing faster than ever. Technology was evolving. Society was shifting. The rules were being rewritten. Mark saw the future. He saw a world where connection was more than just a website. He saw a world where reality itself could be reimagined. He saw the metaverse. He made a bold decision. He rebranded the company. Facebook became Meta. It was a new beginning, a new vision, a new mission, a new dream. He invested billions in virtual reality, in augmented reality, in the future of connection. He built new products, new platforms, new possibilities. He hired the best and brightest. He built a team that shared his vision. He inspired them. He challenged them. He led them. He worked around the clock. He sacrificed sleep, comfort, and normalcy. He poured everything he had into the company. He faced new challenges, competition from Apple, from Google, from TikTok. But he refused to back down. He refused to give up. He refused to let the world win. He believed in the vision. He believed in the dream. He believed in the power of connection. He was building something bigger than himself. He was building the future, but the future was uncertain. The risks were real. The stakes were higher than ever. But Mark was ready. He was a leader now. He was a builder. He was a visionary. He was changing the world, and the world was watching. But as Mark built his empire, he faced a new question, one that would define his legacy. Mark looked back on his journey, the struggles, the failures, the triumphs. He saw the lessons he had learned. He saw the mistakes he had made. He saw the growth he had achieved. He realized that success was not about money or power or fame. Success was about impact. Success was about meaning. Success was about connection. He shared his wisdom with the world. He talked about the importance of vision, of resilience, of grit. He talked about the power of failure, of learning, of growth. He talked about the need for humility, for empathy, for purpose. He talked about the responsibility of leadership. He talked about the importance of building something bigger than yourself. He talked about the power of dreams. He talked about the power of connection. He talked about the power of hope. He inspired a new generation of builders, of dreamers, of leaders. He challenged them to think bigger, to dream bolder, to build better. He reminded them that the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. He reminded them that greatness is not given. It is earned. He reminded them that the only limits are the ones we set for ourselves. He reminded them that anything is possible. If you believe, if you fight, if you build. But Mark's story isn't just about business. It's about the human spirit, the relentless drive to create, to connect, to change the world. This is the story